I did an adaptation of a book, Heretic, the Templar Chronicles, a couple of years ago for Marcosia. And that was actually kind of a nice sort of a license deal in a way, because the author had really no qualms about me doing whatever I wanted with it. Because I, at first, I asked him a few questions. I was like, well, should it be like this? Should it be like this? And he goes, really? The book is the book, the comic's the comic. I trust you. Do what you want to do. So I think that's kind of rare in the field, but it's nice when those kind of opportunities happen.
Any questions, I think, so far?
Yes.
Mike, do you have other questions?
No, please, keep blasting. I've just been taking it all in and enjoying every moment.
I can just talk to him
One thing
in my voice.
I was wondering when you were talking is it more difficult to adapt a property that is ongoing, still in production?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when something is over and done with, you can know the whole history of it. You can know all the facts that are ever going to come out on the screen. When it's ongoing, they are going to contradict you. No matter what you do, the show is going to contradict you the next day. As soon as your thing goes on sale, the next day there's going to be something on there that makes yours wrong. The first Angel novel I wrote 11 Angel novels and a bunch of Angel comics. This Angel. And when I wrote the first Angel novel, Angel had not been given a first name yet. And there was an intimation that his first name might be Liam, but it was not clarified, and so I called him Liam at one point, and then I can't call him that. So they will contradict you, and every fan will point out what an idiot you are.
Then you have all the work of coming up with a whole new storyline with this guy that has this phobia about calling everyone Liam, and then you just have to explain it away.
Reverse engineering, yes. And for me, my stuff was always, I went in knowing, my thought process was, they will all hate me. Everyone will find something hate because it's something they don't want. And I like, okay, I accept it. I'm going to do the best damn job I can. That's all you can do with these things. You can't think about, you can't worry about, you can be respectful of the fans, but you can't worry about the fans. You can't think, I need to suck up to a different fan bases, because no matter what, you'll be wrong. No matter what, you will fail. There'll always be people that don't like your stuff. I've been, at least from what I've seen, I've been incredibly lucky that I've actually had a very positive response with the Androids book. The Warhammer stuff was kind of hit and miss, and that's the nature of the industry. But you can't go, anytime you do a license, you can't think, oh, what will the fans think, what will they do? They don't know. All they know is they're going to hate what you do. And, or they will love it. But the last, they're your first audience, but they're the last people you're responsible to, if that makes sense.
And there can be cool aspects of doing something that's ongoing if you're working with the right partner. I did 2 novels based on the NBC TV series Las Vegas. And when I pitched an idea, and I was talking directly to the creator of the show, Gary Scott Thompson, the man who also gave us Fast and Furious 1 through forever. And I pitched him the idea, and he said, yeah, that's kind of cool, but here's the thing. We're destroying the Montecito Hotel and Casino at the end of this season. And at the beginning of next season, there's a new one. And there's a certain time lag it takes to build a casino. So we're not going to show that on TV. So I want you to tell that story in the book. And so we talked about what the story would be, what the characters were doing during this 6-month period that they imaginarily built a casino in 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did that, and so in a way that book became canon, even though it wasn't on screen. It was occasionally referenced on screen. They talk about, oh, what we're doing back over there in that 6-month period. So in that case, having an ongoing show that I could play off of and be part of was a really cool experience. But more often it's a giant pain.
So it's not you're creating an alternate, an alternate universe for this, for this ongoing series. In fact, in that particular example, they had to feed off, they had to take what you had written and continue their own shows based on what you had added.
With the rare exception, if you like the, was it Star Trek X-Men crossover, where you go, people are going out knowing this is not canon in any universe. This is just a simple one-off. one shot of kind of playing like together, like Army of Darkness versus Hack and Slash versus Buffy, whatever. We have multiple things come together. It's an understood that, well, everyone's got a say in it. And I feel bad for anyone who has to deal with, the editors have to deal with like a multiple property crossover.
Enormous.
Yeah, that's why I think editors. But with those things, it's when you go into those, yeah, everyone knows they're not. I mean, unless you have an inside joke, they don't count.
Well, typically anything that's in print is not canon if it's based on something that's on the screen. So it's very rare for anything to be.
It's even like with Star Wars, where they got.
But nonetheless, when you finish a story involving the characters who are on the screen, if it's an ongoing thing especially, you have to leave them in the same state that you found them in. Like if you kill someone, you have to be able to bring them back to life, and maybe not even have memories of being dead, because on the show they don't remember having been dead. So you do have to kind of start at point A, tell your story in between two episodes somehow. You fit this whole story in, and end back at point A again.
Yeah, I've been kind of surprised with Toho that they're so stringent about likenesses, and I mean, the characters look a certain way, but they've allowed a lot of leeway with the story, apparently, because I'm not that familiar with the whole Godzilla universe, but certainly not as much as most of the fans I've run into.
Oh, yeah.
But they really changed around a lot of things. I mean, I think Rodan actually ends up being in some kind of pagan museum that a kid finds and kind of steals and ends up. This is in France, I believe. And then there's another one where Angus is actually in Mexico. So these are all completely different origins for these supporting characters that they're doing. So this is kind of cool. I think it adds a nice dimension. It just surprises me a little bit that they would allow that, but that's cool.
Do you have those two tiny singing twins from Godzilla versus?
Well, we do. We kind of alluded to them. We haven't actually seen them. We've only seen like the backs of them. We have the evil little twins for Batra that against is in France.
Any questions from anybody? Fire away.
I'm thinking about adapting an album to a comic. Exactly how would I go about doing that?
Find the people. Who's the album?
Is
it a major performer, or is this people you know?
No, it's a major performer.
Good luck with that. They're very protective of stuff like that. And very greedy.
That would be expensive.
Very expensive. That's why you really don't see stuff like this. It's very expensive, incredibly expensive licensing fees, which is something we can talk about in a minute. But should you want to do that, find out the production that band has a production company. Contact the production company. If they don't have a production company, contact their agent and go.
Or you can start at the record label if that's all you got.
Yeah, but find as close to the rights ownership of that company, of that band, and check with them. But again, there's a reason very few people do that. Even like, was it Kiss? I think it was one of the people that do it. I've had other people approach me about it, about me doing a licensed adaptation of different music industry people, and they have no idea what comics actually are. I mean, they know they're there, but they don't understand the production, the time, the money involved. So for them, Kiss does it because they license everything. They're geniuses with it. But with them, as I said, you've got not to dissuade you, but you have a big uphill battle ahead of you. And definitely check with, the odds are they've got a production company. Find them online, check with them, make a pitch. If you're going to pitch them, make sure you have as much of the stuff done in advance as possible. Like if you redesign the characters, have all the character redesigns, have the pitch, like the story pitch synopsis done up, have everything so they're not guessing. Because they're not going to say, well, this looks nice, what about this? Can you send us some more? Most you're going to do is yes or no. Or yes or no. We'll talk or no. So have as much of it if you're going to do it. And you have to have an incredibly professional looking package. It's not here's a couple JPEGs. Here's a full, almost multimedia production. If you want, here's PowerPoint. Here's as pretty as you can make it. So because you've got to wow them, especially since I'm guessing they don't probably know you personally. Yeah, you've got to something like you got to blow their socks off, just through the floor, through the other room next door.
Now, are you talking about a based on or an inspired by?
Either way, if the name's involved, if you've got anything that they can sue over, is what it comes down to. Because most you get, if you're not going to do that, most you can get away with the blue water stuff where, oh, we're just telling the story of it, so therefore we don't have to pay you for it. If you're going to do that, I'd still say don't do it anyways because it really screws over the actual creators. But if you want to do something like a thematic, like inspired by, or here's this album and I want to do a story that this album inspired me to do, anything like that, you're going to have to get permission for. But I said, to put together a full out production packet for it, send something that is better than the best you've seen. And send to them, that's the best chance you have, but even with that, again, I don't mean to come down heavy. It's a very heavy uphill battle. So.
I wanted to ask if for the properties that each of you had worked on, if you had actually pitched the project or if the company had come to you because based on your previous work. And if you did pitch it, what was your experience like?
99% of licensed property work will be coming to you from a publisher that has acquired the license, because creators can't afford to acquire licenses pretty much. And I have been in meetings where as a publisher, as a representative of a publishing company, I've pitched people to try to get licenses, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. We created a great pitch package and went to Lucas Ranch in the Bay Area and had a wonderful lunch and a great meeting and still did not get the license.
We made a Lucas Ranch though.
I've been to the ranch. I got lunch at the ranch.
I'm kind of jealous about that as it is.
And I had a meeting at Warner Brothers for La Femme Nikita, and there were 24 people from Warner Brothers in the room, most of whom had never met each other and didn't know what each other did. And we're all sitting around a table and they're going, oh, you work in that division? Oh, you know, I know someone who used to work in that division. You know, we're here to talk about this. No, we don't want to talk about that. We're not doing comics. So,
Get validation.
They can be giant wastes of your time.
Yeah, when I worked for on Godzilla, that was strictly from IDW. It's very aggressive, looking for the licenses that they should be doing, and so they are definitely the ones who are going after those. And then, yeah, a lot of times the creators, I think they find you if they like your work, or if they sometimes like with IDW, which is kind of cool. Is I think they definitely want quality people, but I think sometimes they really want someone a little different, just so they can add something. It's like, oh well, we haven't seen this before, so that's why that was kind of cool having Eric Powell actually write it, and then Phil Hester penciling it. And of course, me inking is the best part. We all know that. So that's the other thing.
When I was the editor-in-chief at IDW, all we wanted was someone cheap.
Yeah, no, that was I was couching it for that.
And for all my licensed properties, it was Boom Studios. They're based around LA, so they're very active about going and getting licensed properties. And from them, it was not me going, wow, I heard you got this. Well, no, I take it back. The first one with Warhammer was, I was at San Diego, and you've heard the story because I said it last time, but we were at the same panel about an hour ago. So we'll see how the story changes, but I was at, I tell it different every time. But I was at San Diego, and I'm going off my portfolio, and I saw the Boom Studios booth there, and they had some Warhammer stuff, and I just finished doing a bunch of stuff for the RPG stuff and CCGs. I'm like, wow, so I thought they were finished with that. They just did a couple of them down. I'm like, hey, what, so you're doing Warhammer? Yeah, did Warhammer? No, we're still doing it. Really? Yeah, well, I've done this, and bring up my portfolio, show it. And looks it over, like, okay, nice. This is great. We can definitely use it. Let me double check for my editor, but I was essentially hired on the spot for the Warhammer because of that. But so that was me kind of going to them, but they'd already tried to secure that license. But with Androids, I was just talking about my editors I'd worked with for Warhammer. I'm like, hey, you got anything coming up? No. We'll be clear. Yeah, you got anything coming up? Yeah, well, something. Here are 3 pages, draw this. What do these characters look like? Well, here's one of the covers with Deckard on it. The other ones, just make it up. Like, okay. So I go through, and after about 2 weeks of drawing and revision, like, oh, you got the job. Yay, now send me the script. Yeah, here's pages 4 through 22. But my tryout was the first 3 pages. So and the time of getting that was not me. And then I found Android's Green Electric Sheep. Sounds vaguely familiar. Philip K. Dick. Yeah, for him, I'm a great author.
They didn't pay you retroactively for those 3 pages?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. It's that's different.
But sometimes they I'll
Yeah.
try not to.
Well, see,
I'll try not.
I'll do the tryout if I end up getting work out of it. But I also, I've done tryout pages where it's like, it's the calculated risk. It's like, okay, I can spend an afternoon or a day of my time to get a month's worth of work. I'll take that. I mean, for major public, for moderate to major publishers, I'll take that risk. Small press, no.
When you are known for doing licensed work, you get to know the editors who acquire it, and sometimes you get to know the licensing people. So I have been recommended for work by the licensing person from CBS. I got a CSI DVD game job from that. I got a Criminal Minds nonfiction book from that. And I've done CSI comics and novels. And it's just because the licensing person at CBS likes my stuff, so she pushes me when a project comes up. And I knew a licensing person at Universal. That's how I got the Las Vegas stuff. Because I knew her from doing projects at IDW, and then she recommended me for Las Vegas and for some other jobs. So once you start doing that kind of stuff, you get known, and people start coming to you.
But yeah, it's most of my jobs actually have been the second-hand license. Warhammer, and then I did 2 years for doing Anna's Dream, and one of the other properties I'm working on now is a loose adaptation that I can't talk about, but it's a loose adaptation of a story as well. So in fact, I'm also in Richard Starking's Elephant Man, doing an issue of that, which is my first full non-licensed property I've done in a while. With the exception of like Euro covers or the occasional thing, and almost everything else has been licensed. And I think a lot of that is because editors are like, okay, he's worked with multiple tiers. He knows how to deal with this. He knows how to deal with IPs. He doesn't mess around with those. So therefore, it can be actually quite beneficial.
I had a question actually about, I mean, all these are about being approached by the licensors who actually just want a continuation of the story or an adaptation into comic form.
Being approached by the publisher who acquired the license.
Oh, yeah, there's
yes.
a big...
So, what about the people who are just talk fan fiction? Obviously, this is it's kind of dangerous territory because everybody has different every publisher has different restrictions as to what they will allow to be published in fan fiction. I've actually spoken with a couple of people already in the Comicon who say that they have a great idea for the story. They're just curious as to whether or not what is the process for acquiring permission, and are they at risk?
You don't get permission. No, it's fan fiction.
The process is writing a check. If you're not writing a check, it's not going to be licensed, and it's not going to be official, and you can't make money on it. You can sometimes put it up online as fanfic and get away with it and not get sued, not get shut down. But if it looks like you're making a dime, you will get a cease and desist letter.
Oh yeah, there's no permission. Permission is here you're working on a licensed property, because otherwise some people might take it as canon, and there might be characters might not be treated the way they want to. So there is no permission for fanfic. Unless you have a special episode of Doctor Who written by Neil Gaiman. You have stuff like that where the Comicon might have you write like an episode or direct an episode or stuff like that.
I would think the fan fiction, they might be, I mean, especially some of the bigger licenses might be more tolerant of, just in the sense that if they feel like this is sort of like an online community that's just having fun with our property, it helps the show or the movie.
It's the money aspect.
Yeah, but like you said, if they feel like you're making money off it, it's a different thing. But if they feel like you're just actually talking about it or writing about it and sharing it with friends, that's
actually that varies, because most places, yes, it's free advertising. It's actually many ways why comic companies don't come down to people that sell prints of like their creators, because it's you're making money, but you're doing our advertising for us. We don't put out so many posters a month, and they don't sell great, but these people that buy your posters buy our book as well, and they'll buy the book first. However, Warhammer actually shut down their forums because they didn't like some people were not saying they were putting up like their own adventures there. They're acting out their own like, okay, here's a scenario or a situation, or here's a story. Warhammer, they're so controlling of their IP that they actually shut down the forums because of that. Even though, as you said, but it's advertising, they're not losing money. Their thought was, but by doing that, they're not buying our versions of these things. But that's the anomaly.
There are trademark reasons why you have to try to protect your trademark in any event, no matter what someone's doing with it. And there are the big companies who have these properties that people want to play with have a lot of money
Yeah.
at stake in those properties, and they want to try to be very protective of them.
Well, there's also the personal ethics and ego of it. I mean, I've had my likeness used in a not so flattering way, where I basically saw it as, they're friends of mine, and they meant it totally out of love and respect. There was nothing malicious about it at all, but they use a story where...
That was the Tony Parker dartboard. I had one of those.
Oh, I licensed that. No, this was me. Y'all seen Fifth Element?
Yeah.
Remember Lulu in the white outfit?
Oh, no.
Yes, a very tight, restrictive white outfit with horribly, pornographic anatomy. No, I found out at first. Again, they're friends of mine, and they might actually be on the floor. I don't know if I'm on the floor or not, but I first saw the picture because I was tagged on Facebook. And my mom, my 3 sisters, and my grandmother are on Facebook. So it's like, ooh, let's do a picture there of Tony. And other outfits, and it was no, that's the thing. For me, I can do it, I was cool with it because, no, they didn't ask permission. I warned them, look, I'm cool with it, but for future reference, if you use a real person at any point, especially if you're telling a story like this, get permission because they can legally sue you. But I actually I did their release party and read from my lines from their book, and I thought it was pretty cool about it. But it's also one of the things like, if you're going through like, wow, so I'm Patrick Stewart, and I played Picard for so many years. Like, oh wow, they made an adult film version of me. Oh, how do it's some people say, oh, it's not love respect. Like, no, it's made porno with my likeness.
Well, it doesn't matter what they do with it necessarily. When I became an editor at DC, I'd been working for Wildstone Productions, which was part of Image Comics. We were fast and loose with everything. And we got bought by DC, and we had the lawyers come in and tell us what we can really do and what we can't do when you have Warner Brothers deep pockets to worry about being sued. And they said, for instance, the Chrysler building, very famous building in New York City, its likeness is trademarked. You can't draw the Chrysler building into a comic book without paying the Chrysler building a fee and having a contract. And they occasionally sue people who use the likeness of the Chrysler building without permission. So you have to be very careful about anything that has a trademark.
Cloud have a character that's sort of based on the Chrysler building a long time ago, like Zot.
Scott, in the Zot days, Scott probably didn't have enough money for them to bother suing.
Probably. Nowadays that might be different.
So this goes extends all the way to actual owned properties. So if you wanted to create your own for sale superhero team comic, where their base of operations is out of the basement of the Trump Tower.
Oh yeah.
Then you need to have these written permissions from the owner of these properties.
And odds are you won't get them without money. Everything, again, the licensing fees.
Not from Donald Trump.
Oh.
Come on, he seems like a nice guy.
It's his hair that's me. No, and that's the thing with any time. Actually, go for it.
Well, my question is just how close can you get with implying who you're talking about without actually...
Oh, you can imply all.
It's a gray area.
I'm just curious where that is before you start getting sued. Like, where do they say, no, this is who you're talking about?
Well,
versus what?
That's a gray area. Actually,
Especially if it's parody, you can get away with it. But implication is fine and happens all the time. You just have to be very careful about not actually coming around and saying.
Naming it.
Yeah.
and it's also the light in which it's portrayed.